Please don't bring Soraka back into the top lane. Can we start a hashtag? Cancel the buffs? Hey Summoners, what's going on? Zyrene here with another ProGuides video for you, and this time we're giving you another meta update heading into the next patch. To make it clear, we're running you through what you need to know about before you head into your ranked games next patch. The meta is constantly changing, and once again, we're here to keep you guys up to date on every single role. And speaking of updates, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can receive notifications for videos just like this one. Now moving forward though, here's our question of the day. Do you like the current meta? Why or why not? Personally, I don't like the meta too much, but I think it's better than a lot of previous ones that we've seen. It feels like now there's a lot of champions that are viable, and in previous metas, it always felt like you were kind of forced to pick from a very specific pool of champions. And right now, I feel like there are definitely champions who are most ideal to pick, but there are usually powerful counters to them, and thus we see a little more diversity than in the past. I'd like to see more item changes, specifically with things like Blade of the Ruined King and Sanguine Blade, and we'll actually be talking a little bit about that in this video, but let me know what your answers are in the comments below. Alright, let's run through the top lane. We mentioned previously that Soraka top has slowly been making her way back into the meta as a top laner. That's definitely scary, but on the bright side, she is definitely still weaker than she was before her nerfs. Once again, Riot is giving her some more buffs, and we expect to see her play rate climb a little bit more in this patch. But be careful when you see her in Champion Select, and don't get hard baited as a top laner. Make sure to build an early Executioners or to run Ignite. Phase Rush is also a solid way to ensure that you can pressure Soraka for some kills. It received some buffs a few patches ago, and melee champions should have an easier time forcing 100-0 all-ins because of them. And yes, I also want to talk to you guys a little bit more about Phase Rush. The buffs it received were exclusively for melee champions, but it's still seeing a lot of use on various champions, including ranged ones. That's because of how the meta has developed. A lot of melee juggernauts and tanks are currently the most popular top lane picks right now. Ranged champions who can abuse Phase Rush, like Jace, Vladimir, and Ryze, are seeing more and more play as a response to these types of picks. They basically get free farm lanes with their range advantages because they can safely poke out their melee opponents. Even if Juggernauts or Bruisers want to force heavy trades, Phase Rush allows these sorts of champions to immediately deny any attempts. Ryze, for example, can use his E on you, root you with his W, and then either basic attack or use his Q to activate Phase Rush. Then he just runs away and now you've lost a decent chunk of your health. Vladimir has his pull for safety, while Jace has his trusty hammer form E knockback. You get the idea, they're pretty good at avoiding all-ins. And next up, with Kled receiving nerfs, the current meta champions are going to feel much stronger. Kled, especially because of the grievous wounds on his Q, is a great counter to most other bruiser top lanes, since a lot of them rely heavily on their healing. Picks like Darius were kept in check by Kled, but we should expect the current meta to settle in even more as a result of his nerfs. Also, in spite of buffs on 10.9, Sanguine Blade is still significantly outclassed by Blade of the Ruined King. Sanguine Blade would be a good answer, but it just can't hold up against the raw dueling power that Blade of the Ruined King provides. Finally, Aurelia is set to receive some buffs, and these buffs are actually pretty massive, and you should expect to see a resurgence in her play. Get a counter pick ready. Considering which champions are meta at the moment, it shouldn't be too hard, as we have picks like Renekton and Darius who do exceptionally well against her. Moving forward though, let's talk about the jungle. While we've talked about this before, farming to level 9 is an extremely effective tactic in the jungle, especially since the EXP buffs from patch 10.8, power farming the jungle has become much stronger than before. This is particularly why funneling is still viable, since extremely fed junglers can reap the benefits of these changes. Nevertheless, a ton of junglers that love clearing their jungle, like Kayn, are putting out excellent results in response to this. If you haven't already, make sure to start adjusting your pathing. Ganking is still great and absolutely necessary, but you want to make sure that you're doing so without sacrificing too much while clearing through your jungle. If you haven't watched our mid-patch update, you might not be aware that we recently placed Fiddlesticks in the S+ tier there. Fiddlesticks is absolutely slept on. He's an extremely powerful pick at the moment because of his immense AoE damage and crowd control. Fiddlesticks ganks have massive impact on games, and don't even get me started on how hard his ultimate can turn lost team fights into victories. Pick him up, he definitely isn't getting the amount of play he deserves because this guy is absolutely insane. With Nidalee buffs on their way, be prepared for Nidalee's return to the meta. She was already doing fine prior, but these buffs will not only make her stronger, but also encourage more junglers to pick her up. Anytime a champion is mentioned in patch notes, it should come to nobody's surprise that more players start locking them in. Nidalee's clear speed will go up slightly, but more importantly, her ganks will be much more deadly as a result of her damage output increasing. Next up, let's run through the mid lane. At the moment, and actually for basically the entirety of League's existence, ganking bottom has been an incredibly effective method to win games. Right now, pushing mid and roaming bottom is easily one of the easiest ways to win games. This isn't just a general macro play strategy either. Tons of champions that are seeing success right now capitalize on this method. Champions like Diana, Kassadin, Pyke, Katarina, Fizz, and Galio thrive while they can take control of their lane, push minions into the enemy mid laner's turret, and roam to pick up some kills bottom. The reason why ganking bottom is so effective is that you're able to put 2 players on the enemy team behind when you're successful. Under extreme circumstances, you can basically take a player out of the game by camping their lane. If you camp top or mid, the game becomes something like a 5v4. If you camp the bottom, however, both the bottom laner as well as the support fall behind, making the game more similar to a 5v3. Also, certain dragons like Ocean Dragon are just way too valuable to not fight over. Since every game spawns at least 3 different types of dragons, your odds of having at least 1 Ocean Dragon in your game are extremely high. Another thing worth mentioning is that Twin Shadows is making a comeback. Champions like Veigar, Sylas, and even Vladimir are taking advantage of it. Twin Shadows is a powerful item, especially in solo queue because of its low price point and incredibly impactful passive. Crowd control is one of the most effective tools players can take advantage of to win their games. Picking off out of position enemies instantly creates numbers advantages, and with them, players can make plays to progress the game forward much more easily. Veigar especially loves using this item because it makes following up with his cage so much easier. Champions who rely heavily on landing a specific ability find even more value when bringing a Twin Shadows. Taric is going to face some nerfs next patch as well, however, we expect funneling to still be viable. It took some heavy hits previously, and while pretty much everyone expected it to finally disappear from the face of the planet, it proved to be too powerful again. Funneling is going to remain viable in spite of these nerfs. Twisted Fate buffs are also set to hit the live server next patch. They're pretty big because Twisted Fate will now be able to use his ultimate much quicker than before. Most of the time, players don't expect Twisted Fate to ult the moment he hits 6. Now that Twisted Fate's ultimate costs less mana than before, TF players can look for instant ports to one of their side lanes as soon as they hit 6. Having 50 more mana to work with is a huge deal, especially in the early game. It's not something that you can write off. This will be especially powerful when he ganks bottom, and we already mentioned that ganking bottom is an impactful strategy, but also note that while a mid laner is level 6, bottom laners are usually still level 4 or 5. So it's much easier to pick up kills as a result of this level difference. Now let's cover the bottom lane. Finally, and I mean seriously, finally, we got those Misfortune nerfs. I know all of us have been super excited for them and we've been blessed. With Misfortune receiving nerfs, this means that literally every other bot laner is a little more viable than before. She's held a death grip over the bottom lane meta for quite a while, so any nerfs, no matter how small, will help diversify the meta. Misfortune's movement speed from her W is taking a hit. What this means is that she'll be easier to punish than before. It's definitely one of those abilities that provides some excessive power. Misfortune already hits like a truck, but because of the incredible amount of bonus movement speed she gains from her W, she's able to walk back to lane much faster and also avoid ganks more easily. This obviously made her much safer than she needed to be, since she already deals so much damage. Utility and range are extremely valuable right now for bottom laners. What players should be watching out for is a shift in the meta towards long-range utility champions. With how popular Juggernauts and Bruisers are, keeping your distance is a must. Although mobility is a great answer to the less mobile powerhouses we see flooding Summoner's Rift, crowd control is an equally effective method. At the end of the day, you just need to be fast enough to keep your distance from your opponents. Picks like Lethality Varus, Ashe, and even Senna are finding success at the moment. While immobile, these champions sport incredibly long range and are able to use crowd control to protect themselves to an extent. And in addition, their crowd control assists their team by locking down crucial targets during decisive moments. The cherry on top is that these types of champions are typically extremely strong during the laning phase. Lane dominance has a huge impact on games currently, so this isn't something that you can easily write off. And finally, it's time to run through supports. Omnistone is continuing to gain popularity among supports. Taking the Inspiration Tree as their primary one allows supports to combine Hextech Flash Traption with Nimbus Cloak. These two combine really well because of Hex Flash's short cooldown, as well as the fact that Nimbus Cloak allows players to gain a sizable burst of movement speed after casting a summoner spell, even fake ones. Champions that are taking Omnistone commonly are Set, Poppy, Volibear, Shen, and even Blitzcrank. Whether it's because they use the Keystone effectively, or because they want to abuse the Hex Flash and Nimbus Cloak combination, a bunch of supports are beginning to hop onto the bandwagon. Yuumi is a champion that's gaining a ton of popularity as a support. Her ban rates have been climbing as a response to this, but during games where she does manage to get through, everyone needs to watch out. Yuumi basically makes any champion on her team a fed one. She provides them with some bonus adaptive force and provides them all the utility they need to succeed. Whether it's movement speed and some more health from her heals, or some extra crowd control to chase down their targets, Yuumi is the provider. Basically, any champion can use Yuumi's assistance effectively, whether they're a backline carry or a frontline engaged champion. We mentioned Senna a little earlier, but fasting Senna is still extremely powerful. She's branched away from exclusively laning with Tahm Kench and is now often seen laning with Maokai and Nautilus as well. Any support that can effectively use the extra income they receive is a great candidate to lane with Senna. These three champions were or are seeing play as top laners, so they're accustomed to high incomes that allow them to scale regardless. Running one of these supports with Senna in the bottom lane also creates some more diversity across the map. You don't have to run a tank in the top lane or jungle anymore. You can have your tank down in the bottom lane now. That's going to cover our 10.10 meta update for you guys. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, comment, and also subscribe so that you can stay updated with all the different kinds of content that we're releasing. Thank you guys so much for watching. We here at ProGuides really appreciate it. Until next time, good luck on the Rift and happy grinding.